Hello again. It seems a few of you, my dearest friends, actually enjoyed hearing Snow White as it was told to the Grimm brothers. So, as promised, I will turn to another page in this very large book. I was thinking of reading Rapunzel, but I came upon this story and I thought to myself that it should be wonderful. You see, Cinderella is such a popular story that there are versions of it in almost every country in the world. Her slipper is sometimes made of silk, or glass, or fur, or gold, but always the story ends with the shoe fitting and the prince and Cinderella living happily ever after. A classic tale. What could go wrong? So, here we go. The wife of a rich man fell ill. That is a very depressing start. Shouldn't it be once upon a time or something like that? This does not bode well. The wife of a rich man fell ill, and as she felt her end approaching, she called her only daughter to her bedside and said, "Dear child, be good and pious, then the dear Lord shall always assist you, and I shall look down from heaven and take care of you." She then closed her eyes and departed. That's two mothers dead in the first two paragraphs of stories. What did the Grimm brothers have against mothers? After her mother's death, the maiden went every day to visit her grave and weep, and she remained good and pious. When winter came, snow covered the grave like a white blanket, and by the time the sun had taken it off again in the spring, the rich man had a second wife, who brought along her two daughters. They had beautiful and fair faces, but were nasty and wicked hearts. Not ugly? There were a lot of changes, though, but it's pretty much as I expected. I have been nervous for no reason at all, and it called her a maiden instead of a child, so I feel it is safe to believe she is older than 7, and that is a major relief. 7. As a result, a difficult time was ahead for the poor stepsister. Why should the stupid goose be allowed to sit in the parlor with us, they said. Whoever wants to eat bread must earn it. Out with this kitchen maid. They took away her beautiful clothes, dressed her in an ugly smock, and gave her wooden shoes. Did I miss the sentence where the father died too? I'm sure there must have been a sentence like that. Just look at the proud princess, and how decked out she is, they exclaimed with laughter, and led her into the kitchen. They expected her to work hard from there and from morning till night. She had to get up before dawn, carry the water into the house, make the fire, cook, and wash. Besides this, her sisters did everything imaginable to cause her grief and make her look ridiculous. For instance, they poured peas and lentils into the hearth ashes, so she had to sit there and pick them out in the evening. When she was exhausted from working, they took away her bed, and they had her lie next to the hearth in the ashes. This is why they always looked so dusty and dirty, and why they all called her Cinderella. You see, I knew that wasn't actually her name. I'm sure she has a nice name like Susan or Odette or Alicia. One day, it happened that her father was going to the fair at... Wait. His father was going to... He's alive? He's alive? And he's letting this happen? I didn't think I would find a worse father than King not appearing in this story, but this guy... Father of the Year here. And he asked the two stepsisters what he could bring them. Beautiful dresses, said one. Pearls and jewels, said the other. And you, Cinderella, he asked. Even he calls her Cinderella? His own daughter? Shish! Father, she said, Boy, she's nicer than I am. I think I'd call him sperm donor. Father, she said, just break off the first twig that brushes against your hat on your way home and bring it to me. What she should have said was, yeah, get me a new family. So he bought beautiful dresses, pearls, and jewels for the stepsisters, and as he was riding through some green brushes on the return journey, a hazel twig brushed against him and knocked off his hat. Too bad it wasn't his head. So he broke off the twig and took it with him. When he arrived home, he gave the stepdaughters what they had requested, and Cinderella received the twig from the hazel bush. She thanked him, went to her mother's grave, planted the twig on it, and wept so hard that the tears fell on the twig and watered it. Soon the twig grew and quickly became a beautiful tree. What is in her tears? Cinderella, come sit in my garden and be miserable. My roses need you. Sorry. 3 times every day Cinderella would go and sit beneath it and weep and pray, and each time a little white bird would also come to the tree. Wasn't there an Alfred Hitchcock movie about this? Beware the bird, Cinderella. In the meantime, the king had decided to sponsor a 3-day festival, and all the beautiful young girls in the country were invited so that his son could choose a bride, and that's not at all demeaning or belittling to either women or marriage. I suppose it could be worse. He could just go out and buy his son a corpse. 7. When the 2 stepsisters learned that they too had been summoned to make an appearance, they were in good spirits and called Cinderella. Comb our hair, brush our shoes, and fasten our buckles, they said. We are going to the wedding of the king. Is it a wedding? All right. You know, I think I've seen this somewhere before. Something about, I'd like to thank you all for coming to my wedding. Now I just need to go in there and propose to the bride. This is very creepy. Cinderella obeyed, but wept because she too would have liked to go to the ball with them. All right, we keep changing our minds. Is this a wedding or a ball? Somebody make a decision. And she asked her stepmother for permission to go. You, Cinderella, she said, you're all dusty and dirty, and you want to go to the wedding? How can you go dancing when you've no clothes or shoes? And whose fault is that, wicked stepmother? When Cinderella kept pleading, her stepmother finally said, I've emptied a bowl full of lentils into the ashes. If you can pick out all the lentils in 2 hours, you may have my permission to go. The maiden went through the back door and into the garden and cried out, Oh, you tame pigeons, you turtle doves, and all you birds under heaven, come and help me pick the good ones for the little pot, the bad ones for your little crop. Boy, I hope the birds understand that, because why would you plant bad seeds? Also, I told you this was a Hitchcock movie. 2 white pigeons came flying into the kitchen window, followed by the turtle doves. Eventually, all the birds under heaven swooped down, swarmed into the kitchen, and settled into the ashes. Imagine the mess. This feels like a good time to run away screaming. No? The pigeons bobbed their heads and began to peck, 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 and all of the other birds began to peck, 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 and they all put all the good lentils into the bowl. I wouldn't be surprised if they ate a few along the way. It did not take longer than an hour for the birds to finish their work, whereupon they flew away, happy because she thought she would now be allowed to go to the wedding, the wedding ball, the ball wedding. The maiden brought the bowl to her stepmother, but the stepmother said, No, Cinderella, you don't have any clothes, nor do you know how to dance. Everyone would only laugh at you. When Cinderella started crying, the stepmother said, If you can pick 2 bowlfuls of lentil out of the ashes in 1 hour, I'll let you come along. But she thought the girl will never be able to do it. Then the stepmother dumped 2 bowlfuls of lentils into the ashes, and the maiden went through the back door into the garden and cried out, Oh, you tame pigeons, oh... You Hitchcockian horrors, come and help me with the lentils. This seems to be a bit repetitive. Anyway, so shortening this up, because I'm beginning to notice it's just going to be the same thing again. Pick, pick, pick. Lentils are done. Stepmother says, no! You don't have the latest fashions, and I hate you. Anyway, so again, no, 1,000 times no, and Cinderella finally has to watch them leave. Stepmom, the 2 stepsisters, and Father of the Year. When they had all departed, Cinderella went to her mother's grave beneath the hazel tree, and she cried out, shake and wobble, little tree, let gold and silver fall all over me? Wow, that sounds really painful. The birds responded by throwing her a gold and silver dress and silk slippers embroidered with silver. They can do that. Then why is she bothering with the stepmother and the Father of the Year? I do not understand this story. Where is the fairy godmother? Isn't she supposed to show up right now and start carving pumpkins? The maiden hastily slipped into the dress and went to the wedding. Seriously, is this a wedding or a ball? I'm so confused. She looked so beautiful in her golden dress that her sisters and stepmother did not recognize her, and though she thought she must be a foreign princess. So the birds are also hairstylists and makeup artists? Did the tree have a place for her to shower? Did the birds carry her to the wedding ball? I think a fairy godmother makes more sense than the Hitchcockian tree of dead mother. I have so many questions. Where was I? Oh, yes. Now the prince approached Cinderella, took her by the hand, and danced with her. Indeed, he would not dance with anyone else. And he would not let go of her hand. Whenever someone came and asked her to dance, he said, she's my partner. Does this feel red flaggish to anyone else? Are there no normal men in fairy tales? She danced well into the night, and when she wanted to go home, the prince said, I'll go along and escort you. For he wanted to know whose daughter the beautiful maiden was. Danger! Danger! Red flag! We have a red flag on the field! But she managed to slip away from him, oh good girl, and got into her father's dovecoat. What's a dovecoat? Well, one moment. According to Google, a dovecoat is a structure with holes in it for roosting birds. How? What? Well, I can see why this part is always edited out. Now the prince waited until her father came, and he told him that the unknown maiden had escaped into his dovecoat. The old man thought, could that be Cinderella? And he had an axe and pick brought to him so he could chop it down. However, no one was inside, thank goodness, and when he went into the house, Cinderella was lying in the ashes in her dirty clothes, and a dim little oil lamp was burning on the mantel of the chimney. Cinderella had swiftly jumped out the back of the dovecoat and run to the hazel tree. There she had taken off the beautiful clothes and laid them on the grave. After the birds had taken them away, she had made her way into the kitchen, where she had seated herself in the gray ashes, wearing her gray smock. Yep, fairy godmother made much more sense. The next day, when the festival had begun again, and her parents and her sisters had departed, Cinderella went back to the tree. Oh, I see where this is going. Sings her little song, birds bring her a dress, nicer than last time. She apparently teleports to the wedding ball thing. And once again, Prince Red Flag is all over her with the my partner bit. Gee, I have no idea why she keeps running away. When she wished to leave, the prince followed her, wanting to see which house she went into. Oh, they have laws against this. But she ran away from him and disappeared into the garden behind the house. There she went to a beautiful tall tree covered with the most wonderful pears, and she climbed into the branches as nimbly as a squirrel. In a ball gown and heels? I am impressed. The prince did not know where she had gone, so he waited until her father came, and he said, "The unknown maiden has slipped away from me, and I think she climbed into the tree." "Take a hint, Highness, she's just not that into you." The father thought, "Can that be Cinderella?" And he had them bring him an axe. What an idiot! He chopped down the tree, but there was no one in it, and what if there had been? Do you think of that? Either of you? Well, yes, sir, that's my daughter. Pity she was crushed to death. So, yep, she's pretending to be asleep in the kitchen again. Same thing next day. Off go the steps and the father of the year. Off to the tree goes Cinderella, new dress, but with shoes of pure gold that she should have sold and got away from these nutcases. She shows up, Prince goes all possessive, they dance, and again she has to slip away from him to go home. However, Prince Red Flag had prepared for her running off by coating all of the stairs with pitch, which is a sticky tar-like substance. I looked it up. And when Cinderella went running down the stairs, her left slipper got stuck there. After the prince picked it up, because she clearly kept running, he saw it was small and dainty and made of pure gold. Next morning, he carried it to Cinderella's father and said, "No one else shall be my wife but the maiden whose foot fits this golden shoe." The two sisters were glad to hear this because they had beautiful feet. Ha! We finally reached the Quentin Tarantino part of the story. I knew it was only a matter of time. The oldest took the shoe into a room to try it on, and her mother stood by her side. However, the shoe was too small for her, and she could not get her big toe into it. So her mother handed her a knife and said, "Cut your toe off." "Once you become a queen, you won't have to walk anymore." Seriously? The stepsister cut her toe off, forced her foot into the shoe, swallowed the pain, and went out to the prince. He took her on his horse and as his bride, and he rode off. I do not like this man. But they had to pass the grave where the two pigeons were sitting on the hazel tree, and they cried out, "Looky, look, look, at the shoe that she took. There's blood all over, and her foot's too small. She's not the bride you met at the ball." Couldn't think of a rhyme for wedding? What is it with Grimm Brothers and the bad rhyming? He looked down at her foot and saw the blood oozing out. Ugh. So he turned his horse around, brought the false bride home again, and said she was definitely not the right one, and the other sister should try on the shoe. Aren't there other ways to check? Hair color, eye color, anything? Did you even look at her face? The second sister went into the room and was fortunate enough to get all her toes in. Thank goodness for it. I don't know if I can take any more shaved off body parts. But her heel was too large, so her mother handed her a knife and said, "Cut off a piece of your heel. Once you become queen, you won't have to walk anymore." The stepsister cut off a piece of her heel, forced her foot into her shoe, swallowing the pain, and went out to the prince. These sisters are bosses. I am seriously impressed with their fortitude. But once again, as they rode, they passed the tree, and sure enough, the pigeons started rhyming again. Prince Red Flag looked down at her foot and saw the blood oozing out of the shoe and starting to turn her white stockings all red. And ugh, what an image. I think I'm feeling sick. He then turned his horse around and brought the false bride home again. "She isn't the right one either," he said. "Don't you have any other daughters?" "No," said Father of the Year. "There's only little Cinderella, my dead wife's daughter, who is deformed? She can't possibly be the bride." The prince told him to send for the girl But the mother responded, "Oh, she's much too dirty and really shouldn't be seen because clearly washing up is impossible." However, the prince demanded to see her, and Cinderella had to be called. First, she washed her hands and face until they were clean. See, that was easy. And then she went and curtsied before the prince, who handed her the golden shoe. She sat down on a stool, took her foot out of the heavy wooden shoe, and put it into the slipper that fit perfectly. Like a glove, you could say. Sorry, dad joke. Had to lighten the atmosphere. All right. Clearly, where was I? After she stood up, the prince looked her straight in the face. He recognized the beautiful maiden who had danced with him. Finally, if he wasn't already Prince Red Flag, he would clearly be Prince Patchaclue. "This is my true bride," he exclaimed. The stepmother and the two stepsisters were horrified and turned pale with rage. However, the prince took Cinderella on his horse and rode away with her. As they passed the hazel tree, the two white pigeons cried out, "Looky, look at the shoe that she took, and her foot's just right, and there's no blood at all." Oh, good, they must have cleaned the shoe before Cinderella put it on. Lord, I hope they cleaned the shoe. She's truly the bride you met at the ball. Does no one think it's strange that there are talking pigeons? Does this sort of thing happen a lot? Just wondering. After the pigeons had made this known, they both came flying down and landed on Cinderella's shoulders, one on the right, the other on the left, and there they stayed. We may be moving back into Hitchcock territory again. On the day that the wedding with the prince was to take place, the two false sisters came to ingratiate themselves and to share Cinderella's good fortune. When the bridal couple set out for the church, the oldest sister was on the right and the youngest on the left. Suddenly, the pigeons pecked one eye from each girl, and no one freaked out at all. They just went on with the wedding like nothing happened, with two half-blind, limping, bleeding women and two violent birds, and everybody was okay with that. As they came back from the church later on, the oldest was on the left and the youngest was on the right, and the pigeons pecked out the other eye from each sister. Guards, stepmother, medic, father of the year, anyone? Thus they were punished with blindness for the rest of their lives due to their wickedness and malice. The end. That's the actual end? 2 stories end in wanton violence? Well, children, good night, and don't forget to pray about your dying in sleep. Children are made of sterner stuff in ye olden days. I think I will have nightmares. I'm beginning to wonder if Walt Disney read any of these stories, or if someone just sort of gave him an overview like the back of a book cover. Ugh. Well, that was about as soul-crushing, but at least it had 100% less 7-year-olds. So, this is the part where I ask you to please like and comment if you want me to keep doing this with the book of shattered childhood dreams and blood. It really helps me to know if anyone is actually enjoying this, or just enjoying watching my childhood die. Either way, let me know. Until next time, I will probably tell Rapunzel.